is Emmett Till's story. He grabbed me, he threatened me. This was the story that Carolyn Bryant testified to of 14-year-old Emmett Till. In August 1955, the Chicago youth Emmett Till was visiting family in Sumner County, Mississippi, when he entered Roy Bryant's country store to buy some bubblegum. Bryant's wife, Carolyn, was working in the store and spent about 1 minute alone with Till before others heard him whistle at her. Outraged, Roy Bryant and his half-brother, James W. Millam, abducted Till and tortured him to death. Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till Bradley, defiantly held an open casket funeral in Chicago, where thousands gazed in horror at his mutilated body. To show the world the fate that had befallen Emmett, Mrs. Bradley also distributed a photograph of his corpse in publications and newspapers and magazines, later explaining that the whole nation had to bear witness. The two men were indicted and charged in September 1955. During the 3-day trial, prosecutors presented courageous testimony from Moses Wright, Till's great-uncle, who witnessed his abduction, and Willie Reed, an African-American sharecropper who overheard Bryant and Millam torturing Till. After deliberating for just over 1 hour, the all-white, all-male jury announced a not-guilty verdict on September 23, 1955. All but one juror later admitted that they believed Bryant and Millam were guilty of murder, but chose to acquit because the mandatory punishment, life imprisonment or death, seemed too harsh to impose upon a white man for killing a black boy. For a month after the trial, Bryant and Millam admitted their guilt in a Look magazine article. The magazine reportedly paid them some $4,000 for their confessions, in which they graphically detailed their abduction of Emmett Till from his uncle's home, admitting that they pistol whipped him, forced him to disrobe, tied a heavy cotton gin fan around his neck and barbed wire, shot him, and threw his body in the Tallahatchie River. Carolyn Bryant never spoke publicly about the incident, but in 2007, at age 72, she told Duke University senior research scholar Timothy Tyson that she had lied about Till having made verbal and physical advances on her. In a new book, The Blood of Emmett Till, Tyson writes that she told him, "Nothing that boy ever did could justify what happened to him." 5 decades after Carolyn Bryant testified that 14-year-old Emmett Till grabbed her and verbally threatened her, she admitted it was not true. Justice Department officially closes Emmett Till's investigation without bringing justice last.
Another term, violence and abuse. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me, you know you're so scared. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and cases with no carpet on the floor. There. But all the time, I've been climbing on, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark when there's been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, because you find it kind of hard. Don't you fall out, for I still going, honey, and I still climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stale.
Southern trees bearing strange fruit, blood on the leaves, and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral seeds of the gallant South. Them big bulging eyes and the twisted mouth. Scent of magnolia of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck. For the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, and the leaves to drop. Here is a strange and bitter cry.
This is Medgar Evers' story. Evers began his journey as a civil rights activist when he and 5 friends were turned away from a local election at gunpoint. He had just returned from the Battle of Normandy in World War II and realized fighting for his country did not spare him from racism or give him equal rights. Evers soon turned his sights on desegregation after being rejected from the University of Mississippi Law School because of the color of his skin. The Supreme Court's Brown v. Board of Education, 1954 ruling making school segregation unconstitutional. His fight to desegregate the University of Mississippi Law School bore through 8 years after he began, when James Meredith was enrolled in 1962. As NAACP's first field officer in Mississippi, Evers established new local chapters, organized voter registration drives, and helped lead protests to desegregate public primary schools, parks, and Mississippi Gulf Coast beaches. Evers gained notoriety in the eyes of white supremacists after becoming involved in 2 high-profile Mississippi cases. His public investigations in the 1955 lynching of 14-year-old Emmett Till and the 1960 conviction of Clyde Kennard, a black civil rights activist framed for crimes he didn't commit, left Evers vulnerable to attack. White supremacists made several attempts on Evers' life before succeeding on June 12, 1963. About midnight, a shot rang out. It was June 12, 1963, in a suburban neighborhood of Jackson, Mississippi. A 37-year-old civil rights activist named Medgar Evers had just come home after a meeting at the NAACP. As he began the short walk up his single-story Rambler, the bullet struck Evers in the back. He staggered up the steps of the house, then collapsed. Across the street, on a lightly wooded hill, another man jumped in pain. The recoil from the Enfield rifle he had just fired drove the scope into his eye, badly bruising him. He dropped the weapon and fled. Meanwhile, Evers' wife and 3 children, still awake after watching an important civil rights speech by President John F. Kennedy.
We've become one country because all of us, all the people who came here, had an equal chance to develop their talent. We cannot say 10% of the population, you can't have that right. Your children can't have the chance to develop whatever talents they have. The only way that they are going to get their rights is to go in the street and demonstrate. I think we owe them and we owe ourselves a better country than that. Therefore, I'm asking for your help in making it easy for us to move ahead and provide the kind of equality of treatment which we would want ourselves. To give a chance for every child to be educated to the limit of his talent. As I've said before, not every child has an equal talent or an equal ability or equal motivation. But they should have the equal right to develop their talent and their ability and their motivation to make something of themselves. We have a right to expect that the Negro community will be responsible, will uphold the law. But they have a right to expect that the law will be fair, that the Constitution will be colorblind, as Justice Harlan said at the turn of the century. This is what we're talking about. This is a matter which concerns this country and what stands for. In meeting it, I ask the support of all of our citizens. Thank you very much.
outside. They were soon joined by neighbors and police. His wounds were severe. His family had to beg for him to be admitted to an all-white hospital after he was initially turned away because of his race. Evers died within the hour. He was just 37. Leading the investigation, the local police immediately found the rifle and determined that it had been recently fired. Back at the station, a fingerprint was recovered from the scope and submitted to the FBI. We connected it to a man named Byron de la Beckwith, based on its similarity to his military service prints. He was arrested several days later. Beckwith, a known white supremacist and segregationist, had been asking around to find out the location of Evers's home for some time prior to the shooting. With the obvious motive, his fingerprint on the weapon, the injury around his eye, his planning, and other factors, Beckwith clearly appeared to be the killer. In 2 separate trials, local prosecutors presented a strong case. A number of police, FBI experts, and others testified on different parts of the evidence against Beckwith. But this was the 1960s, and in both trials, all white juries did not reach a verdict. Beckwith went free. By the early 1990s, however, the time was ripe to revisit the case. Evers's widow, Merle, a formidable civil rights organizer in her own right, asked local prosecutors to reopen the investigation and see if other evidence could be found. The FBI again provided its assistance. In December 1990, a new grand jury returned an indictment against Beckwith based on witnesses finally willing to tell their stories, including hearing the white supremacist brag about how he had killed Medgar Evers. 3 decades later, justice was finally served when De La Beckwith was found guilty of Evers's murder and sent to prison in his 70s. This time, justice was served. Beckwith was convicted in 1994 and sentenced to life in prison. The murder of Medgar Evers was a loss to his family, the community, and the nation. Evers was a devoted husband and father, a distinguished World War II veteran, and a pioneering civil rights leader. He served as the NAACP's first field secretary in Mississippi, organizing protests and voter registration drives, recruiting new workers into the civil rights movement, and pushing for school integration. But his death in 1963 was not in vain. The brutal senseless murder helped galvanize the nation in its steady march towards equality and justice.
I'm going to be reciting to you all a poem by Langston Hughes called I Too Sing America. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh. I eat well, and I grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. And nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I, too, am American.
by Langston Hughes, 1936.
Let America be America, let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer of fame, seeking a home where he himself is free. America comes out of America's home. Let America be the cage between your streets. Let it be that great, strong land of life. Whenever kings connive on tyrants' scheme, that any man be crushed like a rock. Never was America's home. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned in no false patriotic right, where opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality here, nor freedom in this homeland. Say, who are you that moves in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I see, and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog and of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man, full of strength and hope, tangled in an ancient endless chain of profit, power, gain, of grab the land, grab the gold, grab the ways of satisfying need, of work the men, and take the pain, of owning everything for one's own greed.
I am a farmer, bondsman of the soul. I am a worker, soul to the machine. I am the Negro servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean. Hungry yet today despite the dream. Beaten yet today. Oh, pioneers, I am the man who never got ahead. The poorest worker, harder through the years. Yeah, I'm the one who dreamt of face a dream. And the old world was still a serf of kings. Who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings. And every brick and stone, and every furrow turned, has made America the land it has become. Oh, I'm the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I'm the one who left dark Ireland shore, and Poland's plain, and England's grassy knee, and torn from black African strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on the roof today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we've dreamed, and all the songs we've sung, and all the hope we've held, and all the flags we've hung. The millions who have nothing for our pay, except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again. The land that never has been yet, and yet must be. The land where every man is free. The land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hands at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, be any other name we choose. The seal of freedom does not stain. And those who live like leeches on people's hearts, we must take back our names again. America. Oh, yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of Iraq and ruin of our gangster death, and rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies. We, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain. All the stretch of these great green states, and make America again.
And his death is widely considered a pivotal event in the civil rights movement. This was a massive protest march that occurred when people gathered in front of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. It was the largest gathering for civil rights of its time. An estimated 250,000 people attended the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28, 1963. arriving in Washington, D.C. by planes, trains, cars, and buses from all over the country. This monumentous display of civic activism took place on the National Mall, America's front yard, and was the culmination of an idea born more than 20 years before. The crowd was uplifted by the emotional strength and prophetic quality of the address given by Martin Luther King Jr. It came to be known as the I Have a Dream speech, in which he emphasized his faith that all men someday would be brothers, and his hope that one day his children would live in a nation where they would be not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. On July 2, 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson, who had assumed the office after Kennedy's assassination, signed the Civil Rights Act into law. The passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 guaranteeing equal voting rights, outlawing discrimination in restaurants, theaters, and other public accommodations, involved in interstate commerce and encouraging schools desegregation.
Hi guys, how you doing? How you doing? Go ahead and set up, buddy. Go ahead and set up. Alright, for those who don't know me, my name is Mr. Gonzalez and I host a live ensemble. We have a very special treat for you.
Good, thank you, thank you. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Remember the 21st night of September, I was changing my mind so pretenders while chasing the clouds away. Our hearts ringing and the keys that are so singing while we danced in the night. Remember all the stars through the night away. Guys, we don't have no drums, so give it up for Adrian!
Oh yeah. Alright, give it up for Rocio, man. Yeah. So, most of you guys know this song. It's kind of a slow song. But, I mean, I would love for you guys to sing along.
You guys ready? Here we go, are you ready? Okay. Intro first, who goes?
I see those crystal raindrops fall and the beauty of it all when the sun comes shining through to make those rainbows in my mind when I think of you sometimes and spend some time with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us, just the two of us, just the two of us. Building castles in the sky, just the two of us, you and I. We look for love, no time for tears. Wasted water's all that is, and we don't make no flowers grow. Good things might come to those who wait, but not for those who wait too late. We gotta go for all we know. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Building castles in the sky. Just the two of us. You and I. Beautiful crowd. Hey. One more time. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. I see those crystal raindrops fall on the window down the hall, and it becomes the morning dew. And see the morning comes, and I see the morning sun. I wanna spend my time with you. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Building castles in the sky. Just the two of us. You and I. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. You and I.
Alright. Give it up to the musicians, Elijah Costa. And the man over here, Miguel. Yeah.
You may write me down in history with your bitter twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk in over oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the serenity of the tides. Just like hope springing high, but still I'll rise. Do you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes? Shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my hardness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard? Because I laugh like I was gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up in the past, rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, weeping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tides. Leaving behind the nights of terrors and fears, I rise. Into a daybreak of wondrous fear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hopes of slaves. I rise, I rise, I rise.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out and move mountains. And I rise up, I rise like the the day. I rise up, I rise unafraid. I rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. And I rise up, high like the waves. I rise up, in spite of the ache. I rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. But I know you feel like dying. But I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains, bring it to its feet and move mountains. And I rise up, I rise like the day. I rise up, I rise unafraid. I rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. And I rise up, high like the waves. I rise up, in spite of the ache. I rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you.
Key Club and Lim, you're going to help put this cafeteria back together. You guys have a great 5th period, great night.